If you are designing any type of industrial building, you're very likely to come across a portal frame. Industrial buildings often have a series of parallel rigid frames shaped like a portal. Each frame resists horizontal wind loads and gravity loads in the plane of the frame by flexural action. First thing we need to do in a preliminary portal frame design is to have an idea of what the bending moments are going to be. Let's start out our analysis with columns and rafters of the same size. It's a 40 meters span, so I will start with 610 UBs. Typically columns are of larger sections than rafters, but for now we're just guesstimating. After applying all the loads, which are a bunch of loads and combinations, we can assess the governing load combinations. You can tell that I'm not considering all the load combinations of a real project, and for the sake of this exercise, we will just work with 1.2G plus 1.5Q. In regions A, like some place in Sydney, you might find that gravity loads govern, but if you are in Brisbane like I am, or in any region B or above, you will find the wind will always govern. We have three methods of analysis: non-linear or second order elastic analysis, linear elastic analysis, and plastic analysis. We will be using non-linear elastic analysis, which take into account P delta effects, which arise from the deflections delta of individual members or sway of the portal frame. First order or linear elastic analysis can also be used and assumes the frame remains elastic and that its deflection is so small that secondary effects resulting from the deflections are negligible, but in reality they are not. So basically you apply a force, the portal frame deflects, and the compression forces cause secondary moments. So if you are running a linear elastic analysis, you must apply the moment amplification factors as per AS 4100 to account for those secondary moments. Let's have a quick look at our example. A linear elastic analysis results in 383.61 kilonewtons meters and 620.86 kilonewtons meters, while a non-linear elastic analysis results in a larger bending moment of 396.24 and 634.49. To achieve the most economical rafter section, we must ensure that the design bending strength is as close as possible to the section capacity by MSX, and these values assume full restraint from purlins, girts, and fly braces. Now that we understand that, let's try new sections. For the rafter sections, I will compare the section moment capacity of a UB to the bending moment close to the apex. I'm disregarding the peak moment close to the knee joints because we will model haunches in there. For this example, we will adopt 460 UB 67.1 as rafters, which the phi MSX is 399 kilonewtons meters, which is greater than 396 kilonewtons meters. And for the columns, let's adopt a 610 UB 101 with phi MSX of 782 kilonewtons meters, which is greater than 634 kilonewtons meters. Once the member sizes have been defined, we can start modeling the haunches. There is an extra labor cost associated with haunching, and if you can make the portal frame work without them, beautiful, but I will give you 4 reasons why you might consider using them. Reason number 1, haunches will reduce deflections. Reason number 2, it reduces the critical bending moment in the column, which is typically assumed to be at the underside of the haunch. Reason number 3, it helps to achieve an efficient rafter size as the haunch will take the peak bending moment adjacent to the knee. And reason number 4, it creates enough depth of section that facilitate bolted connections between columns and the rafters. The more depth we have, the bigger the lever arm, therefore the smaller the bolt size and plates we can use. And I would like to emphasize this reason number 4 because sometimes you will beautifully design the members, but then when you get to the connection between rafter and column, you find out that you need a 1 meter deep haunch to make M30 bolts to work, which might be excessive for some projects. So here's my 2 cents. As soon as you find out the governing bending moment, quickly check if the connection will work without requiring an excessively deep haunch. haunch. Let me just check how much deflection under dead load only we are getting so we can compare with the results after adding the haunch. At the apex we've got 219 millimeters and at the eaves 11 millimeters. If your software doesn't calculate the haunch properties automatically, you might have to subdivide the rafter and change the sections manually. Obviously the length of the haunch has to cater for the bending moment diagram, but a good rule of thumb for haunch length is span on 10. In our example, the portal frame span is 40 meters, so 40 divided by 10, the haunch length is 4 meters. The typical stock length of steel is 6 meters, 9 meters, 12 meters, and 15 meters. So let's make our haunch 5.4 meters so we can get 2 haunches out of a 9 meters long beam. The deflection at the apex for dead load only after adding the haunch has reduced from 219 millimeters to 154 millimeters and from 11 millimeters to 8 millimeters at the eaves. And this is how the new bending moment diagram looks like. Another important point to note is that when the rafters are subject to uplift forces, the bottom flanges will go into compression, therefore they are subjected to buckling. That's when fly braces come into play. So we designed the fly braces to restrain the bottom chord of the raft. And speaking on restraints, be aware of openings adjacent to columns. When there are openings next to a column, it means that there won't be any girths restraining that column. Therefore, design that specific column for the appropriate unrestrained length. And pay attention to that because a lot of people miss those little details. Think about how you're going to transport all these elements to site. Members longer than 18 meters are difficult to transport, therefore they must be spliced. Now, suppose we want the optimal warehouse design. How can we achieve a lighter portal frame? Let's talk about 6 options. The first option is to use a deeper haunch. We can optimize the design if we design a deeper haunch as we discussed above. However, make sure that the height to the underside of the haunch is appropriate for the function of the building. If it's not possible to have that clearance, a deeper haunch will not optimize the structure as the building height would have to be increased to achieve the required clearance and would negate the savings. Another alternative, which is not as popular but it can work, is to use a haunch section larger than the actual rafter, but make sure you investigate the connection to the column, the fabrication, and any aesthetic issues. Option number 2, replace the haunch with a strut. We've seen this detail in my video how to read structural steel drawings. We know that the shear forces are taken by the web and bending by the flanges. So since the shear forces are low, we can afford to remove the haunch, which has a web, and replace it with a strut. So basically the strut does the job of the bottom flange of the haunch. Struts are typically lighter than an UB haunch, and notice how the bending moment diagram reduces if compared to a normal haunch. Hence, the deflections will be smaller as well. Number 3, tapered sections portal frame. Basically, you are reducing the weight of the structure by adding material in high bending moment areas and removing materials in low bending moment areas. In reality, tapering sections is not an easy task. The costs of fabrication might outweigh the savings in materials. So this solution should be assessed case by case. Typically, tapered sections are used when the portal frame sections required are greater than 610 UBs. So that's when you might start looking into tapered sections. Number 4, central columns. In portal frames larger than 30 meters span, a central column can reduce the rafter size considerably and also reduce the horizontal thrust at the base. I've shown that scenario on the video how to read steel structural drawings. Even though those drawings are for a braced frame, you can still see how the rafter size are drastically reduced. And remember that those columns must be robust because they are subject to a silly Brazilian dude driving a forklift straight into it. And if you are thinking about the footings, yes, there will be additional costs for footings, but a central column can reduce the weight of the frame substantially as long as there's no need to provide a clear area inside the building. The only scenario where the footings might become a cost issue 5.2 is if the soil has an ultimate bearing capacity of less than 250 kPa, which is around 100 kPa allowable bearing capacity, because the footings must be tied together as per the seismic code. You can read more about that on clause 5.2.2 of AS 1170.4. Number 5, fixed bases. Column bases are usually designed as pinned. We can reduce deflections and optimize the structure by fixing the base, or at least consider some degree of stiffness. The caveat is that we are introducing a more complex connection to the system, and the footings will be larger as they will have to take bending moment. To assess if this option is viable, I would look into the soil test and check if the ground is appropriate for this solution. If the site has a poor quality soil, it might not be a viable solution. Number 6, portal trusses. As we discussed in the tapered section solution, reducing the total weight of a portal structure will not always translate into cost savings. However, according to research from the University of Technology Sydney in Australia, in industrial buildings with spans of over 30 meters, trusses are lighter and cheaper to fabricate and construct than a standard portal frame. Just remember that roof trusses are higher than a building with portal frame, assuming the same internal height clearances are maintained. Also, don't forget to brace the bottom chords of the trusses. When it comes to deflection, there are two areas that we should consider: rafter deflection and the frame deflection at eaves. There's not much research on deflection limits, and that's why you won't find specific recommendation in the standards, and you will also notice that many engineers have different opinions on these numbers. I usually follow the book Design of Portal Frame Buildings, which states that the rafter deflection limits should be span divided by 360 for dead load only for roof pitches greater than 3 degrees, span divided by 500 for roof pitches less than 3 degrees, and it's important to check for water ponding in this case. If your rafter is too flexible, water can pond on the roof and there will be leaking and corrosion problems. So I would personally avoid a roof pitch less than 3 degrees if you can. For live load only, span on 240, and for wind loads, span on 150 if there are no ceilings. For lateral deflection, the limits are column height divided by 150 for steel sheeted walls, column height divided by 250 for masonry walls, and the relative deflection between adjacent frames should be less than the base spacing divided by 200. Farm sheds or any low occupancy building have deflection limits less stringent. And watch out for sag in the ridge line when there are end wall columns in the building. The end wall frame will not deflect as much as the internal frames, resulting in an unpleasant view. And finally, if the deflections you're getting is excessive, you can preset the structure to disguise the deflection. One thing that is extremely important is the footings. Board piers are a great solution for portal frame buildings, and I talk more about them in this video here. I'll see you there.